for attending and being with the show. Like the video as you guys come in. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well. Let's get into some hot topics, trending topics. I know a lot of people are talking about Corey Holcomb, Candace Owens turning point. Might get to some of that. But like the video as you guys come in. I appreciate you guys for being here. Let me go ahead and get into my disclaimer. We're going to get into some news. There is a lot going on in media. Um, Cardi B, Stefan Diggs are trending in regards to his team winning, going uh, into the Super Bowl. Many people were debating what team will go into the Super Bowl, so they're headed to the Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. Cardi B was really excited that Stefan Diggs' team won, who is the Patriots. Yeah, and then Cardi B was trending because of what she had said about the little girl. The little girl, I guess, had picked a different team, and Cardi B made some comments. Forget that little girl. She said a different, Cardi B. But yeah, so let me go ahead and do my disclaimer, then we're going to get into these topics. All comments are allegedly. Like the video as you guys come in, just give me a second. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is use permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the video. Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting. Uh, just give me one more second. Please like the video. Okay, there's that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into what's being talked about. There's that. And I was debating whether to talk about Cardi B. I'll show a picture. I do have a picture of her and Stefan. It's an older picture of him kissing her forehead, and then there's a picture from yesterday in her green hair. We're gonna go ahead and get into some of the news. At first, let me see if I wanted to do. Hold on one second. If I wanted to do hot topics instead of um the news, and it's being reported that Kanye West has reportedly apologized to the African American community. I don't know if you guys saw that. So there is a lot of stuff that's going on. Let me check one more spot. Hold on one second. Like the videos you guys come in. I'm just debating on what. Like the videos you guys come in. Like the videos you guys come in. Ray J spoke about his health concerns. So yeah, let's get into hot topics, trending topics. Then I'll get into the trending news about celebrities. Okay. Thanks for being here. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Video's about to play. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Come on in, come on in. Like the videos, you guys come in.
Exercising our interests in defending and advancing our interests on the global stage. It's very hard, to stand up against an adversary like Russia, for example, if we've got leadership and a whole segment of our society that, has lionized Vladimir Putin and turned him into, some great upholder of Christian values and masculine identity, and therefore, you know, creating the illusion that somehow we should be acting in a way that is consonant with the interests of Russia and against the interests of our traditional allies who share our values. So that's just one example of how the polarization is a vulnerability. Another example is, looking at what Russia and China and others have done to interfere in our domestic political processes, our electoral processes. They can get on social media, hiding as bots and foreign trolls, and put forth misinformation and disinformation that's designed to inflame our existing differences. Any issue that might be a point of difference or friction, and turn Americans against each other and exacerbate those differences. There's nothing that our adversaries want more than to weaken us from within. And we're doing a hell of a job of making that easy for them.
Well, I mean, and to your point, and Russia's a perfect example of how they're braided together, because I may have worked for the last, sort of Russia hawk when I worked for John McCain. It was something he cared about a lot, and there wasn't a big divide. He and President Obama had a similar worldview. The idea that now one of the country's two political parties is not only not repulsed by that which is good for Vladimir Putin and Russia, but that you sort of climb a political ladder in the MAGA media ecosystem by being more and more pro Putin is such an inversion of our politics, and I wonder how you unring that bell.
Well, I mean, let's break it down. I think you and I would both agree that there are differences and divisions within the Republican Party. There's a sort of tradition, what's left of the traditional conservative element of the Republican Party that has long been strong on national defense and national security and clear-eyed about who our adversaries are and who our allies are. That still exists, but it is shrinking, and it's increasingly less vocal. And we have.
Let's continue with the news. Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here.
He shot, and then all of a sudden he shot. There's a pause, and there are more bullets that are shot in his direction. So that investigation, what I'm asking is that there be a complete and thorough and transparent investigation, John, not only by the federal agencies, but also by the state and local investigators also working together.
In fact, here are some comments on the conservative subreddit. I thought Renee Good's case was borderline, but likely legally justified. They still should have had a formal investigation just because of the lethal outcome. This case, don't know how anyone can side with ICE here. On top of that, the person killed turned out to be an ICU nurse, not some unemployed professional protester. I wanted an enforcement of law and order. This doesn't look like it. Bad look. Stop coping. This was another bad look by ICE. We are allowed to bear arms. These ICE agents are clearly untrained and see ghosts. Many such cases. Just saw Stephen Miller's response. Why do they think that people will believe whatever they say? I've been MAGA from day one, and my post history shows that if Trump does not rein in his administration from letting their low IQ behavior hurt this administration's goals, then we aren't just going to lose this midterm, we're going to lose every election for decades. So I think you get the picture. The story being peddled by this administration is so blatantly false that it's actually become contemptuous for their own supporters. They are feeding them straight horseshit and expecting them to believe it and swallow it whole. Calling an ICU nurse who was holding a phone a domestic terrorist who was brandishing a gun and charging at law enforcement officers is not going to fly when there's video evidence from every angle of this interaction that it was the ICE agent who charged him and a cell phone in the guy's hand, not a gun. And if the lying isn't bad enough, now you've got the administration losing its own base by vilifying the fact that he was carrying a legal firearm, something they at least used to pretend to care about. And yet, that's the thing here. There is no underlying principles to anything that they're doing because the only thing they actually care about is power. Like unbridled, uncompromising power. That's why they've undermined their own positions on family values, on states' rights, on fiscal conservatism, because it was all just window dressing to make themselves look virtuous when in reality all they cared about was power. And we're seeing that at play right now. So if this administration wants to play their own supporters for fools, that's their prerogative. But all they're doing is proving how stupid they think they are. And that's not without consequence, clearly. Will that stop this White House from doubling down? Obviously not. So if they want to continue shedding supporters on a daily basis, they are free to do exactly that. Next up are my interviews with Tommy Vitor, Mikey Sherrill, and Sarah Jacobs. No Lie is brought to you by Quince. A new year.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Please hit the like button, everyone. Thanks for being here. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Spokesman Tommy Vitor. Tommy, thanks for joining me. Thank you for having me. Tommy, Gavin Newsom has managed to find a way to overshadow Donald Trump today by saying something particularly provocative on stage at Davos.
I was going to speak last night. It was a well-established event at the USA House. After Trump's speech, they made sure that I didn't. They made sure it was canceled. Any institution of independent thinking is under assault and attack by the Trump administration. You're seeing what's playing out in the streets of American cities, what played out in California, the second largest city in the United States of America. Masked men. Guy Greg Bovino, dressed up. It's as if he literally went on eBay and purchased SS garb. Greg Bovino, secret police, private army, masked men, people disappearing quite literally, no due process. People dragged in the streets, kids separated from family, knocking on doors, racially profiling American citizens. So is it surprising the Trump administration didn't like my commentary and wanted to make sure that I was not allowed to speak? No.
So I want to talk about one thing in particular, and that is this idea that Greg Bovino, who's in charge of CBP, he showed up in this garb, and I'm going to put the side by side right here on the screen of what Bovino looks like and what like SS officers in the 1930s and like
Weird.
who were serving under Hitler looked like. And so for an administration that's so focused on optics, as this administration is, an administration so focused on marketing, as this administration is, as they have this like propaganda camera team following ICE on a daily basis, why offer up these optics if it's inevitable that people are going to draw those comparisons?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to claim that like he's had this jacket forever and it was issued
But since 1930,
1941.
since 1941.
It looks really weird. And like, look, there's all these images out there of Bovino in the field with other ICE officers or CBP officers. He's the only one dressed in a giant coat from the 1930s. Like everyone else is wearing like North Face and a mask. You know, everyone looks completely normal. Like,
Good morning, everyone. Let's get the likes up. The like should match the views. Please come on in and like the video. It helps push us into the algorithm. Please hit the like button. Thank you. Please like the video. And thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. We got to get the likes up, everyone. It pushes me into the algorithm. Thank you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
thugs, but they look normal. And so like, it's a choice. He made a sartorial choice. He thinks he looks cool in this thing. But like, if I walked out to an event with you, Ryan, and I was wearing a gray jacket with like 2 pockets fully buttoned at the top, and you're like, why are you dressed like Chairman Mao? And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, it's a choice. You're wearing a ridiculous, gigantic greatcoat jacket that dictators in World War II wore.
Yeah, and of course that's underscored by the fact that there are the obvious similarities between what ICE is doing and what the Gestapo did about demanding papers from people on the streets, serving as judge, jury, and executioner, where you just kill people on the streets. And so those notwithstanding, the fact that they also are dressing like them isn't lost on anybody. But I want to talk about Newsom for a moment, because he's really one of the only people who's out there, at least who's kind of in the running unofficially for president in 2028, who's making this case. We're not really hearing much from a lot of the other folks who we would assume are contenders. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that whole process.
Yeah, I mean, look, one way to look like Donald Trump's opponent is to go out there and make yourself Donald Trump's opponent. And he's just done such an effective job of that. I mean, some of it is the tweeting and the trolling, and that's been fun, and we've talked about that before. But he's also taken it overseas. Like, he went to the COP summit, the Climate Action Summit in Brazil last year, and then he went to Davos and was, I guess, going to give a speech at this thing called the Fortune USA House, which has some ties to the U.S. government. At least it was viewed as the official U.S. government venue for speakers and things. And then they canceled on him last minute. So Gavin went out and made this aggressive case that the government is trying to censor him, and in so doing, got exponentially more attention than he would have otherwise. So it's like, he's just been really smart and savvy.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this process play out. You and I had spoken offline about this idea that when Barry Weiss tried to kill the CCOT story on 60 Minutes, all it did is draw way more eyeballs to the CCOT story on 60 Minutes.
And they accidentally aired it in Canada.
And they aired it in Canada, and ultimately there was so much pressure that they had to air it in the United States anyway. And so a story that would have just like kind of come and gone like a fart in a hurricane instead garnered all this attention. But look, I think also what's important to note as far as the Newsom stuff is concerned, and this doesn't just have to do with Newsom. I think the same goes for any candidate. Is like, I think of this moment right here that we're in as the audition for 2028. And so if you're not willing to put yourself out there at a time where the country desperately needs it. I mean, watching ICE agents serve as this secret police force killing people on the streets, watching an unburdened, unbridled president declare war on NATO allies and try to annex our friends. If ever there was a moment for somebody to speak out, it's right now. But on top of that, like there's a Democratic Party that's desperate for leadership, that is rudderless, that it doesn't have a leader right now. And so if you want to make the case, 3 years from now, that you deserve to be the leader of the party, but also the country, this is the moment to show that you're willing to do it when it actually matters, when people need some of that leadership, not just when it's convenient for you because you've got some filing deadline, or because of campaign finances and what dates hit where before you have to start
officially say something.
Say something.
Start committees, all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but Gavin Newsom has made himself like the proverbial fart in Trump spacesuit.
New episodes Mondays.
Even after all these years,
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Please hit the like button, everyone. There's about 67 in the building. Please also hit subscribe. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. What do you think about what's being told? What's happening around the world? Let's continue.
Spacesuit, that shit just lingers. Like there were 2 like big events that really broke through from Davos besides Trump like kind of threatening to annex Greenland.
I'm just waiting for another fart pun.
Nope, that's all I got for today. And then kind of climbing down from his own remarks, it was Gavin Newsom kind of punching back, as we saw there, and then it was Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, who was like, "Everyone wake up! the international order as we knew it is over.
And-
We got to fight back.
And
And,
you know, the people who recognize that, like, everybody unanimously understands that that is the right approach. And so there is no excuse for the rest of the people, whether it's other European countries who are still engaging in this practice of appeasement, or frankly, other Democrats in the United States who think that the way to get something from Donald Trump, you know, is to capitulate to him. Or not Democrats, you know, whatever, anybody in the United States who thinks that the way to get something from Trump is to capitulate to him. He's shown with how he's comported himself surrounding ABC News that that's not the way. You don't buy yourself any goodwill. CBS did the exact same thing. They paid him $16 million. Now he continues to shit on them on a daily basis.
And one the other day, the new CBS Evening News anchor, what's his name, Tony Tocopel?
Yeah.
He did an interview, and you read this, Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary, was like, if you don't run the whole thing, we'll sue you.
Yeah,
And
you
it's like,
don't
okay.
buy yourself any goodwill by capitulating to these people. All you show Donald Trump is that you are weak and you can be bought by him.
Bullied.
And bullied, and he does it over and over and over again. And the only thing more pathetic than these institutions continually debasing themselves for him is thinking that somehow this time will be different, and it's never different. He will continue to shit on you, continue to bully you, continue to extort you every single chance he gets.
Yeah, like Trump is Biff from Back to the Future, right? Like,
Yeah.
just like when you're walking to school and like the bully beats you up and takes your lunch money, is that a one-time thing? No. If you like cry and let him have it, he'll beat you up again and again and again. Like, you got to throw a punch, you got to push back on this guy. That's kind of what happened on this Greenland thing.
Yeah.
It seemed like Europe was ready to roll out their biggest response mechanism, this thing called the anti-coercion initiative, that would have levied massive tariffs probably on the United States, or at least cut off U.S. businesses from the European markets, and it spooked the stock market, and that spooked Trump, and he caved.
Yeah.
Seems pretty simple.
Right, and it puts on full display that this guy is not immune to
No.
pressure. He's not immune to economic pressure. He's not immune to popular pressure. You know, the reason that he tries so hard to prevent individual people from voting is because voting has a huge impact. The reason that he tries so hard to prevent these comedians from being able to go on TV and tell their jokes is because those people have a huge impact. Like, that's why he's making such a concerted effort
Yep.
to suppress votes, or to silence people, or to weaponize his FCC, or to use the DOJ to make sure to prosecute his political opponents, be it Jerome Powell, today Jack Smith, James Comey, Letitia James. It's because he knows the power that these individual people have by virtue of speaking out, and so he has to do anything he can to just chill that speech or censor them or whatever it may be.
And it's an important point, because he will go to the ends of the earth to punish these individuals. And if no one stands with them, they are just alone. Like, we have this collective action problem where like everyone's cowering in fear.
Yeah.
No one wants the eye of Sauron of Trump like to be on them for that moment. But if everyone just kind of like quietly looks away and ignores what's happening, we're all going to get hit eventually. Like, this is coming for all of us. You're not going to avoid this wave that Trump has brought. I mean, this crackdown is insane. It's unconstitutional. It's starting with migrants, but who knows where it'll end.
And that weakness, I think, is especially pronounced right now. When Trump had banned the AP from coming into the press briefing room, no other outlet stood with the AP. Like, they could have boycotted these press briefings. They didn't, which is ironic because a few years back, when you were in the White House, and Fox News of all places had issues with
Getting access to an interview.
getting access to an interview, all of these other news outlets stood by them, and it was the Obama administration that actually relented on that, and Fox got what it wants. But like, you do that by virtue of having your friends and allies stand alongside you, and the fact that we're not seeing that today because it's just going to be easier, let's not push against the grain, whatever it may be, is ultimately going to hurt you in the end.
Yeah, the media piece is really important, because Trump has like slowly chipped away at the independence of the media. He's controlled who can cover pooled press events, the smaller events that happen in the Oval or smaller venues. We've also seen over at the Department of Defense, they basically tried to force them to sign rules that would have essentially criminalized the job of being a reporter. So all those reporters had to walk out, and the reporters over at the Department of Defense are doing an amazing job from outside the building, but they will have an erosion of access. They won't see people in the hallways. There will be less serendipity. And then over at the White House, Donald Trump does a press conference, and every third question is from like My Pillow, podcast or something, and it's like, why are you so great, sir? Like,
North Korean state media.
he's in North Korean state. He's like, how cool is Bovino's coat, sir?
Yeah.
And it's just like, fuck. I mean, it's just the steady erosion of any opportunity to hold this guy to account.
Yeah, well, now we have what is it, Nick Shirley, who's learning
My God.
3-syllable words in real time as he's become the top reporter on the right, benevolent, and
It is wild. I obviously greatly support independent media. And by the way, if you want to support independent progressive media, please subscribe to Brian's channel. Please subscribe to Pod Save America, because we're out here trying to report the news, trying to bring you guys facts, trying to do it from a progressive point of view. And it really matters when you follow us, because if you don't, people are going to find Nick Shirley's bullshit, the Daily Wire, and TV USA, right? So please give us a follow. It's free. But
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
the way an independent journalist like him can come along, report something that seems salacious but is kind of complicated, and then Elon Musk can juice that story so it's the most viewed thing ever on Twitter, not on the merits, not because it was exposed something particularly new. Like the fraud issues in Minnesota are real. They've been reported on. Like there's all kinds.
And they've been prosecuted since 2022.
Anyways, we are living in a very rigged media environment in favor of Donald Trump, and it just got worse today. Actually, I think there's about to be a forced sale of TikTok's U.S. components to a bunch of Trump fans and donors.
Yeah, and we've seen like the consolidation of the media. I think that's one of the most dangerous and most underreported stories, because even as Trump continues to engage in all of like this extrajudicial and overtly illegal, unconstitutional behavior and action, if nobody knows about it, it's like if a tree falls in the woods.
Exactly.
So we've lost CBS. CNN is on the chopping block because that's possibly up for sale to the same entity that the same consortium that David Ellison is involved in. TikTok obviously is a huge problem, and ironically enough, that's one of the most progressive skew media outlets that we have because it's so young. The way that we're seeing like this whole media space skew to the right, ironically enough, under this pretense that all media is too liberal, and so they're unfairly being criticized, is just going to become more and more dangerous as they control more information and as they control more algorithms. And we've seen that the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world are willing to kowtow to Trump. Jeff Bezos is willing to kowtow to Trump. We've seen that the folks at TikTok are willing to kowtow to Trump. And as he puts more pressure, and to your exact point, as fewer and fewer other outlets, other companies stand by the people who are targeted, it's only going to be a matter of time until every single outlet falls. So again, that underscores the need for independent outlets right now to step up and fill that void, so that we're not just seeing the Barry Weissification of all media.
Yeah, and like in some ways, like look, the Barry Weissification thing is very frustrating. You hate to see like an incredible establishment media property like 60 Minutes atrophy the way it is.
Yeah.
But in other ways, it's like that's kind of like the last battle. It's more what you're talking about, these new independent media sources and the way these algorithms are being juiced to support one side or the other. Because like the greatest problem in politics for candidates is, for every like freak like us who reads about politics every day, there's way more voters who like maybe consume a couple hours of political news.
Sounds so healthy.
Must be really good.
I can't imagine not having to like ruin my day within the first 4 seconds of being by opening up Twitter.
You're like, you pardoned who? Like, crypto what? And so like reaching those people, like any of those.
And thank goodness for the Nick Shirley videos, because it shined a light for the younger generation to say, what's going on? Why aren't you guys doing anything about it? Because it had been talked about for years.
Of low information casual voters heard that Donald Trump pardoned the former president of Honduras, who had been convicted of trafficking 400 tons of cocaine to the United States. I think they'd be pretty upset about it. But odds are they'll never hear about it, because Donald Trump does something outrageous every 3 hours and keeps the media spinning, and no one can focus on any one thing.
And to that point, I actually want to talk about distraction for one quick beat, because I know that with the Epstein stuff happening, that was kind of overshadowed by a lot of the enforcement action that we're seeing in Minnesota. It was overshadowed by a lot of the saber rattling happening in Greenland. And I had heard some people say, like, this is a distraction from what's happening with Epstein. And I think there is a way to consider that a distraction from talking about Epstein, because we are distracted by it. But I think unto itself, it's more than a distraction. Like, Trump is just showing how overtly autocratic and dangerous and depraved and evil he is. Like, when you have these actions where he's blowing up the world order so that he can invade and annex a sovereign country and one of our own NATO allies, that's not just a distraction. Like that's basically like saying, don't pay attention. He's trying to distract you from this murder by murdering somebody else. Like, they're both bad, and they can stand on their own 2 feet. And so I don't want to diminish the danger of what he's doing in Greenland and what he's doing with ICE by just reducing it to a distraction, because I think on its own 2 feet, it's also just as bad and just as worthy of condemnation. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't also talk about Epstein and keep that in the zeitgeist and discuss the fact that he's engaged in a cover-up, but it's not just a distraction.
Yeah, look, if
you live in a Michigan zip code and have
like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in. There's a lot of distractions that's going on around the world. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
The fact that he's engaged in a cover-up, but it's not just a distraction.
Yeah, look, if all of this Greenland stuff was just designed to be a distraction from the Epstein files, then he was distracting from a story to another one that pulled even worse.
Correct,
90% of voters were like, we should not invade Greenland. And so I think it's not a distraction as much as it's just a strategy. Like, Trump does something outrageous every single day because he knows it creates news, because he knows he can kind of like bend thinking around an issue. The Overton window, like that concept's almost gone. He just sort of like shoves the Overton window. He doesn't push it. So, is it a distraction from Epstein? Sure, it served as one. Certainly, there was a period of time when the Epstein files really were exploding, where they were looking to talk about anything else. I mean, that was when they rolled out the we're going to prosecute Barack Obama for treason button.
That's right.
Remember that?
Yeah, but there was a week where like anything they had, literally, they were
spaghetti at the wall all day long. But
called for Oprah to be prosecuted that week.
Of course they did. Of course they did. I do think he really did want to annex Greenland and had to climb down because it was a disastrous
Correct.
idea.
And I think, there is a lot of things happening, but I think the easiest way, at least for me, to think about this is that these are all small parts of a larger whole. Watching Donald Trump engage in this dangerous ICE activity, watching Donald Trump, alienate our allies, alienate the U.S. on the world stage and try to invade sovereign countries, watching Donald Trump, try to wiggle his way out of releasing the Epstein files despite the fact that it was signed into law by him. It just goes to show that, like, the things that he wants to spend his time on, he spends his time on. Like, he can find time to go into Greenland. He can find time to wage an oil war in South America.
Yeah.
He can find time to
decorate the friggin' new ballroom.
to decorate a ballroom, to encrust the Oval Office in gold, to buy himself a couple of Gulfstream jets that Kristi Noem can use.
Or get one from Qatar.
Qatar. So if he wants to do something, he finds a way to do it. He's not going to let the law stop him. He's not going to let prosecutors or judges stop him. He's not going to let Democrats stop him. He's not going to let the Constitution stop him, which goes to show that when he doesn't do something, and by that I mean lower costs, lower inflation, make IVF free, protect earned benefits, release the Epstein files, end the Russia-Ukraine war on day one, when he doesn't do something, it's because he just doesn't have the will to do it.
Yeah, he just doesn't care. I mean, look, and this is ultimately his greatest political problem and threat, which is that they've done nothing on the economy. I mean, there's a New York Times poll out today. His approval is at 56%. 49% of voters say the country was worse off than it was a year ago. Nearly 70% rated the economy unfavorably. And then even on the ICE stuff, like, that has been their primary focus, has been immigration enforcement. 61% of voters, including 71% of independents, said ICE had gone too far. So Trump is very effectively distracting us, or the media at least, into talking about Greenland, something that's unpopular. But people also feel like he's not doing the job they want him to do, and that's bad. That's bad for him.
Yeah, he's going from, like, one unpopular thing by distracting us with another unpopular thing, all of which kind of entrenches this idea that he's not working for Americans, also, which is an unpopular idea. So with that said, we will continue to stay on top of this stuff. For everybody who's watching right now, if you are not yet subscribed to Pod Safe America's YouTube channel, I'm going to put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video.
Like the video,
Small
like
step
the video.
everybody can take to help build up
Fair use,
the will
fair use reaction clip. Let's continue.
the people of this nation and then targeting them politically in every single way, acting as if sort of a real lawless dictator. And how do you push back against that? And that's exactly what we're working to do here in New Jersey, is find a better path forward, work hard for those values of liberty and prosperity that have been in our state seal and our state motto for almost 250 years. That is what I'm fighting for. And that's what the people of New Jersey resoundingly said they wanted last November.
Can you talk a little bit about cooperation with ICE? I know that, for example, Governor Spanberger in Virginia immediately ended a contract that would force the cooperation with ICE in different municipalities across the state. Can you talk a little bit about where New Jersey stands in that whole process?
Again, it should be striking to people to see someone like Governor Spanberger or myself, people who have worked in the military and in law enforcement, in her case in the CIA. We, I think, deeply revere public service and those people who serve the public. This ICE agency is different. This president is really putting together his private militia. I've been flagging this for months now as we started to see them on the streets with masks and no insignia, acting outside the purview of their duties. We've seen it as they've picked up people who are here legally, and yet they refuse to allow them to prove that. We've seen it as he's put ICE agents in areas not to keep the peace, but to actually incite the people of that state in a maneuver to attack them politically. And so to see someone like Abigail Spanberger, who's former law enforcement herself, come in and say, we are not working with them. They are that bad. To see someone like her, who has a lot of federal workers in her state, say, we cannot work with this federal agency. Certainly here in New Jersey, we have the Immigrant Trust Directive, which I will continue to carry out to ensure that our public safety officers, our police officers are acting in the interest of the public.
So I want to switch over to a little bit about what you've done in just the few days that you've been governor of the state. Can you talk about the first state of emergency that you've declared?
Yeah, so I said, I made a commitment during my campaign.
Thanks for being here. Like the video as you guys come in. Be respectful in comments. Be respectful in comments. Thanks for being here, everyone. I appreciate everyone for being here.
I was focused on lowering costs immediately. That the minute I got in office, I was going to declare a state of emergency. Utility costs, freezing rate hikes, and then working over the long term to drive down costs by expanding power generation. And I stopped in the middle of my inaugural address to do just that, to sign these two executive orders, which will do that, because I wanted people to know I was every bit as fed up with business as normal and the status quo. I was going to get to work. I was going to hit the ground sprinting and make sure I was addressing those key needs right away. So we did just that.
So can you talk a little bit about the extent to which renewable energy is going to be a part of this whole energy infrastructure that you're looking to deal with in New Jersey, especially in light of the fact that Republicans have really just completely turned their back on renewable energy being any facet of this formula moving forward?
Well, certainly it's noteworthy that we were moving forward in all kinds of power generation here in New Jersey and across the country. And part of the reason our rates are so high is because a lot of the oil and gas companies spent about $250 million on Trump's campaign, and he rewarded them by shutting down a lot of other power generation because, again, he's always focused on lining his own pockets at the expense of the American people and our costs going up. So I am focused on all the above generation, meaning that we are going to expand solar and battery generation immediately. That's the cheapest, easiest way to do it. We have about 40% of our mix, which is gas generation, but some of them are older. We're modernizing that to drive down carbon emissions and increase efficiency. And then over the long term, nuclear power generation to build out our power needs. We would love to move into other ways to drive down costs, like wind power, but the president has stopped all of the federal wind farms and the land and the leases, so we could move into that. So again, costing New Jersey ratepayers a lot of money as he is picking his friends over the people he should be serving.
Were there any projects that New Jersey was involved in that were stopped mid-build when he decided to do that?
Good question.
Yes, we were working. We were
Very good question. Like the video, fair use, reaction clip.
still moving ahead on one wind project that because he wouldn't give us the federal leases, we had to stop. So we have now moved to fixing some of our transmission across the state so we can get more power into the grid, move to solar and battery storage, and moving long-term to nuclear, as I mentioned, modernizing that gas generation, drive down carbon emissions. And then we are also taking on PJM. That's our grid operator, which is really, again, favored some of the dirtier fuels instead of getting new clean power generation into the grid, driving up costs for everyone. And so I've already been working with Governor Shapiro and Governor Moore on how we are going to better hold them accountable.
And is that something that you have oversight over at the state level? Like, are you able to tell the grid operator the cap that you want dirty energy to be in terms of the formula, in terms of the total combination of different energy sources?
I have a challenge for you. I want to know if you'd like to write a book, your own book, in only 10 weeks using a proven technique that makes it
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip. Let's get the likes up, you guys. Please double tap the screen. The likes should match the views. Please take 2 seconds to hit the like button. It's free, free, free. Let's continue. Also hit subscribe and thank you. Let's continue.
Of different energy sources?
So we are able to tell the grid operator our expectations, but again, PJM, the real threat is pulling out of that grid. And so should PJM decide they are not going to run the grid in a way that's going to drive down costs for everyone and drive down carbon emissions, then in concert with other states, we may make some choices about how we're going to manage our grid, and that might not include PJM running it.
Okay, got it. Now, what are broader goals for your administration that you can look back years from now and say, if this was accomplished, then this administration was a success, or vice versa?
If I can ensure that we are better holding BPU accountable, or we are better holding our utility companies accountable. BPU, the Bureau of Public Utilities, has been charged by my executive order with looking at the business model of our public utilities. We know they've made billions of dollars while the ratepayers have paid more and more and more. If we can get a better business model in place, if we have our grid operator that is more quickly putting power into our grid, especially the clean renewable power that we want, if we have already gotten to work on a nuclear plan that is going to add power to our grid, along with, of course, as a baseline, growing out our solar, battery storage, and other new ways of generating power. If we are doing that, that is going to be successful. If I can look at third grade reading scores in my state and know that we have phonics education implemented, that we have actually done something, I think, new and meeting children's needs in our school system for the first time in decades here, and that we are competing for that top spot, which New Jersey has traditionally held as the best education system, that would be a big win. If our kids have access to better mental health resources and we take on online safety in my kids' online safety agenda, and we have the Center of Excellence I'm going to build out at one of our colleges or universities so that we have better data on those algorithms and better data on the mental health, because we know.
Let's get the likes up, everyone, so we can continue with the show. Please double tap that screen to get the likes up. Please double tap the screen to get the likes up, and thank you. Please double tap the screen. Hit the thumbs up above the video or below the video. Thank you.
Every time Big Tech studies it, it is so bad they stop the study. So as a state, we are going to invest in that. That will be a success. And if the people of New Jersey who want to start a small business, want to get a real ID, want to engage in any way with our government, feel really well served. If they feel like the interaction they've had with state government, in that interaction that they know every single person in my administration is truly there to serve the public, which I believe is a really noble calling. If they feel that kind of service, if they know that in New Jersey, their government cares deeply about them, that'll be a huge win to me as well.
So I want to switch gears a little bit here. I spoke with Governor Moore from Maryland just a couple of days ago. He announced the introduction of an 8-0 map.
Be kind in the comments. Be kind in the comments. Or go over to your show and run your show. Thanks for being here. Let's continue fair use reaction clip.
And that was passed by the GRAC, the Governor's Redistricting Advisory Commission. Similarly, in Virginia, we're speaking about Governor Spanberger. In Virginia, they're looking to put forward a 10-1 map. That's obviously in the aftermath of California passing its own map. And all of this is in response to what Republicans have done in Texas, in Missouri, in North Carolina, in Ohio, and now in Florida. So in the event that that New Jersey, the legislature reconvenes and has the opportunity to redraw maps in New Jersey, is that something that you've seen any interest in from legislators?
So it would take, there are certain ways we have bipartisan redistricting or nonpartisan redistricting by constitution. So there's certain ways in which we have to go to the people to ask that question. I'm very interested in it because I think we are going to see a lot of malfeasance by Trump. Certainly I was there on January 6th on the floor of the House as he tried to stay in office. So anyone thinks, as he's already said he's going to try to stay in office, he won't. That's I think wishful thinking.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting a great deal of malfeasance, and I want to make sure that New Jersey is as strong and resilient as possible in accordance with the will of the people.
So can you talk a little bit about the mechanics of what that would look like? Virginia, for example, needs 2 consecutive legislative cycles where the legislature votes to approve the constitutional amendment, then it goes out into the people. California obviously did Prop 50 and got this thing on the ballot in 5 minutes, basically. What would the process be like in New Jersey?
Similar to what you mentioned with Virginia, there needs to be 2 legislative cycles. The earliest we could get it on the ballot with our process would be in the November 2020.
Good morning, everyone. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 5 if you've been here before, where you're watching from. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning.
Next election, so we could get a ballot measure on there. What I think it would do, though, is alert people to our concerns and to the fact that we think there is going to be a big fight coming. And I think that would make voters really think twice about how important their vote is and how important it is for them to get to the polls and how important it is for them to support their democracy.
In the event that we see the Calais decision, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, go the Republicans' way, which is to say that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act is gutted. There are no more protections for these black opportunity districts or minority opportunity districts across the country. We could see anywhere from 10, 20, 30 seats get redrawn out of these Republican-led maps so that they can, obviously favor Republicans instead of Democrats. Would you preserve the ability for New Jersey to counter some of the map redrawing that we may see in the event that the Supreme Court strikes down the Voting Rights Act?
Join us on February 7th for Your Weight Matters New Orleans.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Please like the video. Let's get the likes up, everyone. We should already be at 100 likes. Let's get the likes up. Keep me into the algorithm. Thank you. Let's get the likes up. Thank you. Let's get the likes up. We should already be at 100 likes. I need 80 people to double tap that screen to get the likes up. It takes 2 seconds. To hit the like button is free, free, free. Let's get the likes up, and thank you. Good morning, everyone. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 5 if you've been here before, where you're watching from. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
To do that, as I said, the first time we could get that on the ballot constitutionally would be this November. I also will tell you, as I know you know and your listeners know, we are already seeing in Texas, for example, redistricting with complete disregard for the Voting Rights Act and majority-minority districts. But what we are also seeing is when Republicans take these measures, the American people come out in force to try to register against them. So what I'm very hopeful of is no matter what Trump tries to do, that we are going to see not just a blue wave, but a blue tidal wave. And I say that with some level of hope here, not just wishful thinking. I think there's a good chance that's where we're headed, given what I saw in my election. So there were only 2 statewide elections in the entire nation in 25. And what we saw were huge swings in New Jersey, huge swings, 22-point swings, for example, for heavily Latino populations. We saw swings. We saw urban black voters coming out to vote in a force that we haven't seen in probably over a decade. We saw, I want a generally Republican county, we won it for the first time since Watergate. We saw the traditional white working class men come home a little bit, not all the way, not what I'd like to see. My grandpa was a union guy. It's a little offensive to me that I work my butt off for union guys, and sometimes they vote the other way. So, trying to get those guys back. But we are seeing I would say, the traditional Democratic coalition of working people, which I think is our strongest coalition, coming together, and then some of the new coalition, suburban women, for example. We are seeing that coalition really strong. I saw that in 25, and I think that the ability to grow that has only increased since then. So in 26, I'm anticipating that there is not much Trump can do other than not count votes, which is possible with him, to hold on to the House.
All right, well, we will leave it there. That seems like a good place to leave off. Governor Sherrill, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm joined now by Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So you were part of a CODEL congressional delegation that went to Denmark to discuss all of the news happening right now as Donald Trump saber rattles about annexing Greenland. And I want to talk about that in a moment. But first and foremost, I want to get your reaction to some new news. And this is a sense that Donald Trump has, in a way, capitulated. He made some big pronouncement about concepts of a future framework that may happen at some untold point in the future. So it reads very much like there's not going to be some imminent annexation of Greenland, and as a result, no tariffs. And so that this seems to be quelled for the moment. Can I have your reaction to that news?
Look, if this is really an off-ramp that he's taking, then I'm very happy for that, because the idea of annexing Greenland makes no sense. But from all of the public reporting we've seen about this framework, it doesn't seem like we're getting anything that we wouldn't have already gotten from the existing treaties that we have in place with Denmark. And so all of this, saber rattling, all of this lack of trust with our allies, when I was there, I heard from Greenlandic families who told me that their kids couldn't sleep. We've seen world leaders start to call out how they no longer trust the United States as an ally. We saw the biggest protest in Danish history against the United States while I was there. All of that appears to be so that we could get something that we already would be able to get under the existing frameworks. And this is classic Trump, right? He sets the fire and then he claims to put it out and wants to get credit for it.
Yeah. So what was the reaction like from the folks in Denmark? And to what extent do you think that this has permanently injured our alliances, with folks who we rely on to do trade deals and protect us? And, look, when in the aftermath of 9/11, the Danes, for example, were one of the countries that lost the highest proportion of their citizens in responding to what happened on 9/11. So these are not people that haven't offered some goodwill or some security to the United States in return for what we give them.
Yeah, I'll be honest. In talking with our Danish and Greenlandic counterparts, they were kind of baffled. They kept saying that they asked the United States, like, what more do you want in Arctic security? What more do you want economically? Like, we are ready to give it to you. Just tell us what you want. And the administration never gave them anything. And, as I mentioned, the biggest protest in Danish history was while we were there. And there was polling that showed that prior to all of this, 80% of Danes thought that the United States was an important ally. Now only single digits level of Danish people think that we are an important ally. Yeah. And I know anecdotally that that's true across all of Europe. And I think that the damage to our relationships, the damage to our transatlantic relationship, right, to NATO, to these countries believing that if they get attacked, we will come to their rescue, I think that has been completely eroded.
To what extent do you think that, given the fact that there was no response from the Trump team on what else they can do to bolster Arctic security, to what extent do you think that this was then just a vanity project for Trump so that he can look at a map and say, look, we expanded American territory, that's because of me, dear leader?
It was 100% a vanity project. There is literally nothing that we'll be getting now that we couldn't have gotten under existing treaties. And in fact, it would have cost a lot of money to get nothing, right? The Danes subsidize Greenland by about $1 billion a year. That's $1 billion we would have had to take on. They have Arctic capabilities that we don't have. Not to mention that one of the people I was traveling with was Lisa Murkowski, the senator from Alaska, and she will tell you that we don't even invest enough in the existing U.S. Arctic and the Arctic security that we need in Alaska, let alone adding on Greenland now, when we're not already making the Arctic security investments we need.
Moving forward, even if there's a Democratic administration that succeeds this administration,
like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the videos, you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Continue to hit the like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe, you guys. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. Let's continue.
Or broken. I mean, doesn't the rest of the world see that as like, okay, so we're just going to bounce back and forth between, this lunatic right-wing fringe that wants to, usher in a second era of imperialism, and then, a democratic administration that understands the importance of NATO, and depending on what person wins a presidential election is going to determine whether, China can invade Taiwan and Russia can invade Ukraine and the United States can invade other NATO allies, or how does that help us with any long-term alliances looking beyond just every 4 years of a presidential election?
No, that's exactly right. I think anyone in the world will agree to make a deal with the United States that's longer than 4 years because they just don't believe that any deal will actually be implemented longer than 4 years. And that's true now. And it was true in Trump's first administration when he pulled us out of the Iran deal that had been painstakingly negotiated, not just with Iran, but in partnership with our European partners and allies who were part of that deal. And so I am very worried about what this means in terms of how our allies will trust us, how much hedging they will do. And I also think it's important for us to recognize for a long time, I think there was this bipartisan consensus that the U.S. was the indispensable nation, that we were so important, we called all the shots, everyone else followed us, and that's just not the world we're living in. It's not the world we're going to be living in. Frankly, like, this era of U.S. hegemony is no longer here, and I think it's incumbent on us also as Democrats to recognize that we're going to be operating in a different world, and to not just, as Mark Carney said in his speech yesterday, nostalgia is not a strategy, and we need to have a real concrete kind of introspective conversation with ourselves about what our foreign policy really needs to look going forward in this new world.
You had mentioned the point of bipartisanship, and the CODEL, the congressional delegation, was bipartisan. You did have some Republican members. How important is that aspect of it, or are these Republicans just some tiny minority, to give kind of a veneer of bipartisanship, when the reality is that the rest of the Republican Party is perfectly content to sacrifice their firstborns if that's what Donald Trump demands of them?
It's a good question, and I've been having a lot of conversations with my Republican colleagues here in the House, and there's a lot of them who thought this Greenland thing.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Please like the video as you guys come in. Please double tap that screen to like the video. Hello, hello, hello. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Was a terrible idea. I think, Tom Tillis, Senator Tillis, Republican from North Carolina, has been the most outspoken, calling it stupid. But, I've had a lot of those private conversations with my colleagues. The problem is, for my colleagues here in the House, it takes quite a lot to get those private conversations they'll have with us into actual, real, concrete action. And a lot of what we heard was, well, after he invades, we'll do something. And, my point to them was, after he invades is too late. Right. We need to be working now to prevent that from happening. And even the idea that we will or will not be invading an ally based on the whims of a single person is deeply problematic, right? The Constitution, Article 1 of the Constitution, gives the power to declare war and peace to Congress because the founders knew that this was too important of a role for one person to be responsible for. And the idea that, like, tariffs, yes or no, will he, won't he, invasion, yes or no, will he, won't he, is the world we're all living in, is actually the fault of Congress for not standing up and reclaiming our power to be the ones to make these decisions.
Right, but that would suggest that Mike Johnson would actually assert his own autonomy, and as an extension of Donald Trump, that's never going to happen. You had also spoken about Mark Carney. Obviously, his speech at Davos was the big showstopper on day one. Mark Carney and Canada had announced that they're dropping those tariffs on Chinese EVs, and there's so much jingoism and saber rattling from the U.S., especially Republicans, against China. But is there no acknowledgement of the dichotomy of this position, where you have these Republicans who claim that they're going to do everything they can to stop an ascendant China, but by alienating ourselves on the global stage, all we're doing is creating openings that China is perfectly content to fill. We saw Canada fill that void with China just a few days ago, and we've seen other countries get closer to China to strike trade deals because they know that they're a more reliable and less erratic trade partner, less volatile trade partner than the United States is going to be. And so is there no like reconciling those two things that are in blatant conflict with each other among at least your Republican colleagues?
You're exactly right. And for a long time, China has said that we are an unreliable ally, an unreliable partner. That has been their main line of attack against us, and we are feeding right into that. And I can't blame our allies for hedging and for thinking that, they need to cover their bases because they can't count on us. I don't think my Republican colleagues have really thought that second order effect. And I think part of what's hard is that within the Republican Party right now, there is this sort of factionalism of the isolationists versus the hawks and the neocons. And I think some of it is that this is getting caught in that sort of internal fight. Yeah. But yeah, if what you care about is making sure that China doesn't rise, which I actually would argue that this whole frame of strategic competition actually leads us to do things that make us less safe. But if that is your position, which is the stated position of Republicans, then I think, yeah, you should be seeing everything that Donald Trump is doing through that lens and saying, like, this is actually not making us more competitive at all.
I mean, even Trump himself invokes China and Russia as the whole rationale for doing this whole, purported Greenland annexation. We can't be neighbors with China and Russia, and yet all he's doing by virtue of alienating ourselves and hurting NATO, dismantling it. I mean, this would be effectively a death knell for NATO if one NATO country invaded and annexed another. That's it for NATO. That's a wrap. But NATO is the only thing actually preventing some incursion on Greenland by China or Russia. And so he's the only thing that's preventing what Trump claims to want to prevent is the very institution that he's trying to destroy at this very moment.
Well, and I think that goes to the point that Donald Trump doesn't care about, believe in, or understand NATO, because he, I think, truly believes that the only way the U.S. would protect Greenland is if we owned Greenland, not recognizing that the whole point of NATO is that if Greenland were to be attacked or invaded by Russia or China, the entire NATO alliance would come to its defense. That's the entire point of NATO. And so I actually think the idea that he's questioning whether or not NATO is enough to protect Greenland is itself throwing cold water onto NATO and then proving his own point that we need to own it, right? It's this very circular logic. But even with all of the harm that Trump has been doing to these institutions, I think we also need to be clear that, this is not just a partisan problem, right? I would argue that living up to our values is how we are able to build these coalitions, and coalitions are what make us powerful. And, we saw with the Biden administration, with Gaza, with what's happening in Sudan, that a lot of partners around the world feel like we don't hold our friends to the same standards that we hold them to, and it makes them less likely to want to be in coalition with us and to pick our side when there are big international fights.
And last question here on that point of coalitions. Is there some understanding, at least among the folks in Denmark that you'd gotten the opportunity to speak to, is there some understanding that Trump does not represent the vast majority of Americans, that there is a huge faction of us in this country who are as opposed to him as I'm sure they are over there? And in fact, the polling would reflect on this issue in particular. There was polling that from Reuters that showed 4% support for a military invasion onto Greenland. You can't get 96% of Americans to agree on what day it is. You could hold a banana in your hand and ask them to identify it, and you would not get 96% consensus on that. But for 96% of Americans to come out and disagree with this idea of invading or using military force to go into Greenland, that makes it pretty clear where we stand. And so is there some understanding by the Danes that we are not a reflection of, this one guy in the Oval Office whose entire foreign policy is just that some errant synapse fires in his brain and then words fall out of his face?
I was expecting to go to Denmark and to have them be really angry and yelling at us. And instead, every, Danish person I spoke to on the street just felt bad for us.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
What is happening? They weren't mad at us. They were just concerned. And so I do think there is an understanding that this is not representative of the American people, right? The Americans do not want to invade Greenland. They do not want to spend reportedly $700 billion to buy Greenland, right? We would rather have affordable housing, universal child care, all of these other things for that money. And I think they do understand that. And, they want to make sure that we are then doing what we need to do to make sure that that doesn't happen.
All right, well, we will leave it there. Thanks for your leadership on this issue, for going out there and representing the United States so that the only representation isn't, whatever word vomit Donald Trump does on stage at Davos. And thank you for your time today.
Of course. Thank you.
To listen to
like the video as you guys come in. Fair use reaction clip. Let's continue. Let's get the likes up, you guys, so we can continue. There's about 72 people in the building. Please hit the like button so we can continue. It pushes me into the algorithm. Please hit the like button and thank you. Please hit the like button and thank you. Let's continue.
Tackled, thrown to the ground, and then shot. After that, Pam Bondi sends a letter to the governor of Minnesota and basically says, hey, the violence needs to end. We need to restore law and order. And here are 3 things that you need to do. One of them is turn over the voter rolls. That's right. Turning over the sensitive voter data that they have been suing state after state after state to get, that they have been litigating over and over and threatening states over. After this tragic shooting, that's what Pam Bondi goes at Governor Walz with.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Please hit the like button and thanks for being here. Good morning. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
They want this data because they want Donald Trump to be able to rig the election in 2026, and they will leverage even this tragedy, even this horrific event, to get it.
Mark, are they trying to ramp up the violence as much as they can so that they can use that to kind of extort the city of Minneapolis or the state of Minnesota to say, hey, we can make this all go away, but you got to give us something in return. And if you don't, well, we can just keep on sending these ICE officers in, keep on shooting people with impunity until we get what we want.
New episodes Mondays.
Even after all these years.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Please hit the like button and thank you. Double tap the screen. Thank you. We should be well over 100 likes, you guys. Let's get the likes up. Please double tap the screen. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for being here. As you comment, please like the video. Double tap the screen and thank you. Let's continue.
Is that he will leverage anything to get what he wants, right? He's willing to leverage, increased violence. We've seen what he's done with NATO and leverage against our allies. We've seen, Brian, you live in California, I live in Virginia. We've seen what he's threatened to do to blue states to try to leverage, aid to states and the like, right? He'll use anything to get what he thinks is in his best interest. And Brian, let's be honest, there's nothing right now that Donald Trump cares more about than the midterm elections, because he knows if Democrats take control of the House and Senate in 2026, his aims to be an authoritarian get dealt a big setback. This is a guy who recently told the media that he doesn't think we ought to have elections in 2026. This is someone who recently told the New York Times that he wishes that he had seized ballot boxes after 2020. This is someone who went to Davos to announce that there will be prosecutions of his political enemies. There is no surprise then, when you look at the tragedies unfolding in Minneapolis, that he will be willing to leverage that to try to get what he wants with respect to the 2026 election. Look, this is why Democracy Docket has been on this story, both with respect to the voter files, but also why it broke this story tonight about this part of the letter, that the legacy media was not paying attention to. And as soon as Democracy Docket put out, I'm now seeing it all over the place.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend for anybody who is watching this right now, if you're not yet subscribed to Democracy Docket, this whole situation right here is the perfect reason why you should be subscribed, because this is... Okay, so we're going to go with some more hot topics, trending topics. I'm trying to decide. Let's go... Hold on one second. Let's go with Kanye West. It's being reported that he has apologized. So let me get this. Hold on one second. Like the videos, you guys come in. Like the videos, you guys come in. Fair use reaction clip. We're just doing some hot topics, trending topics. Hold on one second. I want a better picture of Kanye. Like the videos, you guys come in. We're just doing some hot topics, trending topics. Good morning, everyone. Like the videos, you guys come in, and thanks for being here. Let's see. Okay, so we'll go with this picture. Nope, I want to go with the other one because it gave a better title. Like the videos, you guys come in. Well, let's see. Okay. So let's go with this. We're going to do hot topics, trending topics. We're going to talk a little bit about Kanye West, and the Breakfast Club is going to talk about what that means and his apology means. Many people were, Kanye's been saying a lot over the last, few months, and many people are like, is he okay? What's going on with him? Why is he talking like that? Why is he acting like that? Many people think that many people were in Kanye's ear. Hold on one second. Many people thought that many people were in Kanye's ear, and that's why he was doing what he was doing, saying what he was saying, which did not make him look good. It was supporting, what they wanted him to do. Okay, so let's go here. Like the videos, you guys come in. Like the videos, you guys come in. This is what happens when I try and switch, and I could have pulled it from the other phone, but okay. So it's Kanye. Let's get into what's being talked about. Thanks for being here, everyone.
In the Wall Street Journal, and I do want to mention this because this is just breaking. So Kanye West took out a ad in the Wall Street Journal, and this is an apology. So it starts, to those I heard, 25 years ago, I was in a car accident that broke my jaw and caused injury to my right frontal lobe of my brain. At the time, the focus was on the visible damage, the fracture, the swelling, and the immediate physical trauma. The deeper injury, the one inside my skull, went unnoticed. So then he goes into talking about his bipolar disorder, and he talks about, being manic and being in denial, and he says, you don't think you're sick. You think everyone else is overreacting. You feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than them, when in reality, you're losing your grip. He says he lost touch with reality. things got worse the longer he ignored the problem, and he did things he deeply regrets. So this is when he kind of goes into the apologies. He says, some of the people I loved the most, I treated the worst. You endure fear, confusion, and humiliation. In a fractured state, I gravitated toward the most destructive symbol I could find, the swastika. And even so,
like the video, because you got to remember, people were in his ear knowing that he was having a medical issue, and they were talking to him knowing he was having concerns. We had saw what he said on stage, and they were in his ear, and y'all know who I'm talking about. So it's good that he's apologizing. We've talked about that. Kanye has had concerns deeply for the last 5 years. Kanye now is not the Kanye 5 years ago. The things that he's been saying about different cultures, race. Who has he been on the different platforms? Y'all remember? Note it in the comments. Who was he on TMZ talking what he was talking? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
T-shirts bearing it. One of the difficult aspects of having bipolar disorder is that you disconnect in moments. He says he regrets deeply his actions, and he's mortified by them in the state that he was in. And he's committed to accountability, treatment, and meaningful change. It does not excuse what he did, he says. I am not a Nazi or anti-Semite. I love Jewish people. Now, to the Black community, Kanye West says, to the Black community, which held me down through all of the highs and lows in the darkest of times, the Black community is unquestionably the foundation of who I am. I am sorry that I have let you down. I love us. He talks about how in early 2025, he fell into a 4-month-long manic episode of psychotic, paranoid,
4-month long. That's a long time.
And impulsive behavior that destroyed his whole life. And he says that at some points he didn't even want to be here anymore. He said he hit rock bottom a few months ago, and his wife was the person who encouraged him to finally go get help. He also talks about, that he's not asking for sympathy or a free pass. He doesn't aspire.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's been.
I told y'all, because Kanye will have spurts that he'll say a lot of stuff in 1 month, and then he'll go quiet. We haven't really heard much. And if you realize, I want to say about a few months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, we saw him in a group session where he was talking to people. Some of his musician friends were coming up to the facility, whether he was in a rehab or whether he was just getting counseling, whatever it was. He was sitting in a circle, and then he was still trying to do music. But lately, we haven't heard anything. So for Bianca to help him, that's a great thing.
I feel like he's been doing the work on himself, and that's why we haven't seen him, man. And I pray he continues to do the work, and I want to see him get mentally and emotionally healthy. I want to see him get.
And then you also reported last.
Okay, so let's do the Cardi B. Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in. Can you guys hear me okay? Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Like the video as you guys come in. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so we're gonna talk Cardi B and Stefon Diggs. Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here. I think today's not a good. It's all right. I'm be positive. Okay, so Cardi B and Stefon Diggs are trending. So we're gonna talk about this. Of course, Cardi B has been trending a lot in regards to her comments. We're gonna get to that. But well wishes to Kanye. It's good that he's definitely getting help and assistance for, some of the things he said to people. So let's get to the news.
You guys, Wendy's has new biggie.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. She's so happy for Stefon. Stefon has been trending a lot, and not in good ways. Stefon has had several babies within the last year or the last 12 months, Cardi B being one of them. Let's continue.
Super Bowl. Pair shared some PDA after the wide receiver and the New York secured their spot in the big game. Amid the Patriots win and the snowy conditions in Denver, the rapper joined her boyfriend on the field alongside family and friends for a post-game celebration. In a video posted to social media, Cardi beamed as she embraced Stefon with a celebratory hug before sharing a kiss and posing for pictures. Cardi, who welcomed her baby boy with Stefon in November, was also captured alongside the 32-year-old declaring the team's victory, screaming, "We go into the Super Bowl." The Grammy winner, who confirmed her romance with the athlete in May, also shared what watching her boyfriend make it to the Super Bowl meant for her after having a front row seat to his comeback, saying in a January 25th interview with the NFL Network, quote, "I'm feeling very excited, very happy for him, very proud of him." She continued, quote, "He just came back from an ACL, and me seeing the